So we're talking about collating poems into your book. And if it's your first book, if it's your first collection, this is something that I really help. It's what I'm sort of trying to help a lot of people with. There's an amazing collection of poets that I've met that have awesome pieces, but they don't have a book. And I'm like, you need to have this book because I will buy it. If that's you and you're wondering what to put into your book and it's your first book, just put it all in there, consider putting it all in there, and then look at it all together. So you'll have a collection, like a lot of poets have 10, 20, 100 poems that they've just written over a lifetime. I'm not saying to put all of that into the finished product of the book, but if it's sort of like you're publishing the backlog collection and then you're going to start wanting to publish more books, then I'll suggest just get it done, say sort of goodnight to those poems and like move on, right? And obviously it depends on the project you're working on. But in my experience, talking to poets who want to start publishing their work, they look over their old work, they start not liking it, they start judging it, they've got a few favorite pieces and they feel like the whole prospect is compacting. So in my mind, it's better, I think, to just get it out there, get it done, and move on to the next piece. The second book will be far more crisp and succinct and thematic and on point than that first book of your sort of random collection of other works. That's one approach. Just put it all in there and just cut any things, like after you've put it all in there, just cut the weaker ones that you don't think fits the overall theme. That's one approach. The other approach would be to sort by theme. So I've written in this book, Wage Slave, there's a collection of poetry that's specifically about my absolute displeasure at capitalism and wage slavery and just not liking that sort of office culture. It makes sense to like put that in here with a collection of short stories. It just sort of worked, right? Whereas with this book, Bound to the Wings of a Butterfly, it's got a collection of poetry that I was writing over a certain period, and that's how I chose to group it. So they're different projects working together, if that makes sense. So really, the answer is there's a whole bunch of different ways that you could choose to put your poetry together, but the best way is to just put it there. We get very worried about making our poetry perfect. So for example, this book is my first book, very small, very thin. It was the first collection, right? Whereas maybe Bound to the Wings of a Butterfly has maybe 5 times the amount of poems. But if I didn't just get this one done, this and everything else wouldn't have been able to flow because I would still be stewing on what poetry to put into this book. Now looking back at it, it's like, okay, it's done, it's okay. I'm proud of the poems in there, but I'm more proud of the fact that it enabled me to do all of the rest of the stuff that I'm doing. Were I to have been blocked and thinking about this still, I wouldn't have all of this other works. I wouldn't have had the collections. I wouldn't have had the shares. It wouldn't have worked just to get it done. There's this issue that creatives, poets have, is that they want to just be creating or sharing or expressing, but they don't want to sit down and stop and collate and put it together. That's a process. And it's one you can teach yourself. It's one I can help guide you through. But simply put, you've just got to just decide and go, okay, I'm putting it in there, and just accept that it's not going to be perfect. Accept that, I look back at this and I'm like, okay, I will do this a little bit differently. I would format it a bit differently. I would put different poems in there. I could have added more. Yet doesn't matter, because over time you get a collection of works, and the whole body is the artistry. It's not just the one book. It's the second book. It's the third book. It's the fifth book. It's the 14th book. All together makes you look like that is the artistry. It's not just the one book, if that makes sense, because you'll do one, then more poems will come, and you'll do another one. So think over the long term.